2025, back again with another awesome stream today. Today we're going to be discussing remote collaboration, something that is very beneficial to a lot of artists, producers, engineers nowadays. Something that, can work very well if you're collaborating with people that are not in your hometown. That's something that I've dealt with a lot as a creative. A lot of the people that I've worked with have been individuals that are, across the country, sometimes across the world. That kind of goes for the podcast too, but I think today we're going to be talking more about music making and specifically, working together on music from far away, from a pretty big distance. And it's something that has, like I said, benefited a lot of creatives, especially in the last probably 5 or 6 years. And I think obviously the pandemic in 2020 really sped that up a lot, where, people were kind of cut off. They couldn't go to the studio. They couldn't really see each other face to face depending on where they lived. And so they kind of turned to a lot of different alternatives, like doing things over Zoom and SessionWire and all those different platforms. And we're going to talk about a lot of those today. Or we're going to cover some of them today. There's a few articles I picked out, but we're going to go over one in particular. So the 3 articles I found this week were from Amuse, Evercast, and RMCAD, which is the one we're going to be going over, and that is the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. I thought this article was very, very helpful, very telling, and I think that it covers a lot of the points that I want to go over today. So let's get right into it. It says collaboration in the digital age, online tools for music producers. Now they talk about specifically tools for producers, but you can use these as an artist too, especially if you record yourself, if you record demos of any kind. These tools aren't off limits just because you're not a producer. So if you're an artist, feel free to keep that in mind as well. The rise of remote music production. While it may be hard for upcoming generations of producers to imagine a time when making music wasn't possible over the web, the reality was the virtual music collaboration tools we have access to today weren't even thought of decades ago. With this in mind, it can be helpful to understand how remote music production came to be and the journey the field took to arrive where it is now. Transition to online collaboration. There have been 2 notable time periods when music collaboration software saw a major shift, beginning with the introduction of cloud storage for audio files and the release of Audacity and GarageBand platforms in the early 2000s. Before cloud storage options became widespread, storing and sharing large files online was logistically challenging. Meanwhile, the Audacity and GarageBand platforms were designed with user-friendliness in mind, even for non-professionals who wanted to play around with music production. And I guess it makes sense why those 2 would be the ones that kind of pioneered it in a way, because they were created by 2 pretty massive brands. So that actually makes total sense why they kind of introduced that. And obviously, Apple in general, I always think about their iCloud storage, how convenient that is, where you can just continue to back up all your work over the networks and across all your devices. So you can do that with GarageBand too, and that's always been a thing, which is very convenient. Throughout the early 2000s, more digital production tools continued to be developed and released, sparking more collaborative music making online. By 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, many artists and producers were forced to make the switch to 100% remote recording and production. This need facilitated the rise of new online music collaboration tools that artists and producers continue to use today, such as Soundtrap, BandLab, Tract, and Soundstorming. So I can't really speak on the early 2000s because I was not making music at that time. So I don't really know what that whole era was like. If you were producing, I know that's kind of the era where a lot of producers were shifting from doing things on the MPC strictly to changing their methods or maybe just adapting a little bit to the online world because it was just kind of shifting over. But I did live through 2020 and I had been making music for 4 years at the time. For me, things really didn't change that much because, like I said, I was about a year, maybe 2 years into working with artists at that point. So I still was working with a lot of artists remotely regardless. So I can't really speak to, how it affected me personally because it really didn't affect me that much. If anything, I think I got more work done during that time period. But it definitely changed a lot of people's lives, especially people based in, cities like LA or New York, where there's studios on every corner. Primarily those people were going to the studio a lot to record. And a lot of the artists that I talked to on podcast, that's around the time when they began to learn how to record themselves and just kind of pick things up as far as like building a home studio and, kind of going that route instead of relying on studios all the time. And a lot of people never went back. They are still, working out of their home base, doing all this stuff. So I think in a way, depending on the way you look at it, it was kind of a necessary thing for a lot of artists to learn new skills, and producers too, to learn new skills, which I do think was good. Benefits of remote collaboration. There are so many benefits to remote music collaboration, including the ability for artists, producers, and other professionals to work effectively across state lines, country lines, and even time zones. In a number of ways, digital collaboration platforms have made it possible for artists and producers to work together in ways that might simply not have been feasible otherwise. In fact, several tools used for music production software online don't even require musicians or producers to leave their homes. In this sense, music production software online can also offer a more budget-friendly and cost-effective way to make music instead of coordinating a specific time and place to meet and possibly incurring travel costs. Artists and producers can now send, share, and work on audio files remotely at their convenience. So yeah, just pretty obvious. It streamlines the whole process, makes everything a lot more efficient. And I always thought the cool thing was as well, if you're someone that prefers strictly working in person, which I know there's a lot of people that do, because we can't deny it, being in the presence of your collaborator is usually the best option because you can really have those deep conversations and figure out what direction you want to take the song, the album, whatever you're working on. But I think it's cool that even if you start out in the studio together, it doesn't mean you have to do every single part of it in the studio. Then you can move to that online world where you're sending things back and forth and just getting things done that way. So I don't think you should take this as, we have to switch totally online. We can't do anything else in person. I think it's kind of just whatever your preference is. And if you do like being in person with your collaborators, still do that, but use these tools to make it more efficient and just easier on yourself. Because if you have the access to these tools, I don't see why you wouldn't try to use them in some sort of way. And again, things can come up. People might not be able to travel to meet each other, or their plans might change. So this is a great alternative to have, to be able to send, say the artist records, they need the stems sent to the producer. So the producer just says, hey, send them via whatever, and then I'll put them in the session and put everything together and send you back the mixes like the next day or whatever, whatever the case might be. But I just think that's worth mentioning because I know a lot of people that they're still just, they only work in person. But it's like if you kind of incorporate these tools in there into your repertoire, I think it's great. I don't think there's anything but good that can come out of that personally. Essential online tools for producers. These days, music producers have access to a number of online tools that make it possible for them to collaborate with other producers, artists, musicians, and professionals in the industry. This includes both digital audio workstations and cloud based music production platforms for online mixing and mastering. First up is the DAW, which we've done a whole stream about DAWs. I think that was in November or October, somewhere in there last year. Definitely go check that out. So we're not going to dive too much into that, but I'll list those again. GarageBand, Ableton Live, Bitwig Studio, which I don't think we covered that one. Logic Pro. Obviously, there's way more than that, like FL Studio. Refer to that DAW stream we did if you want to know more about that. But let's cover the cloud-based production platforms. Likewise, cloud-based music platforms specifically designed for collaborative music making have also increased in popularity over the past several years. These platforms often offer libraries of audio samples, presets, and other works available for remixing. In addition, cloud-based music production tools may include certain features to make remote collaboration easier, such as sound tagging, robust search features and filters, centralized libraries, backup and file sharing services. So again, I don't use specifically a platform that is designed for collaborative purposes only. I did partner with SessionWire, who I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. I partnered with them in 2022. They actually were a sponsor for the podcast for about a couple months. And basically what we did through the partnership was we gave listeners a discount. I think they got like 50% off for their first year of using SessionWire. We only partnered for I think like 6 months. It wasn't super long, and I haven't worked with them since then. Not because it was a bad experience, just because I just didn't end up working with them again. Maybe I will eventually. I didn't really use their service that much though. I mean, I used the free version for a little bit. I found myself kind of just going back to G Drive, and I don't use Dropbox either that much. I'm kind of picky about like what I use to send files. I use WeTransfer a lot and Transfer Now for large files. But that SessionWire is an example of one of those platforms where they specifically designed the platform to work strictly remotely, and it saves all your files and your sessions in a very nice and effective way. So that's the one I have experience with, but there's obviously others as well. Communication tools that enhance collaboration in addition to software and tools designed specifically with remote music production in mind. Producers and artists have also gotten creative in their use of remote communication tools as a means of making their work easier. This includes the use of video conferencing tools and real-time messaging apps to stay in touch and share ideas within the realm of collaborative music making online. Now we'll dive into these video conferencing tools. In situations where meeting in person to discuss a project may not be possible for cost effectiveness, video conferencing tools allow producers and other music professionals to meet synchronously. Wow, I cannot believe I got that word right. From anywhere in the world. These tools can be great for sharing ideas and even working on projects together at the same time. Meanwhile, video conferencing makes it possible to read a person's body language in ways that a phone call simply cannot, adding further value and authenticity to the music making experience. Here are some examples of video conferencing tools, and these are all pretty common ones: Zoom, Google Meet, GoToMeeting, Zoho Meeting, Microsoft Teams. Obviously, I've used Zoom the most. I have used Google Meet a couple times. Usually that's like somebody else's request because they don't have Zoom. So they'll say, hey, I do have Google Meet. And then I've used that. I haven't used the other ones, but I'm familiar with all those. Again, it's just a preference thing. I don't know if I've mentioned this in other streams, but I probably have, honestly, a couple times. But when I start working with an artist, we always do a video chat beforehand, whether it's a FaceTime or a Zoom meeting. Usually it's a Zoom meeting because I don't have their number, they don't have mine. But we'll set up like a half an hour, 45-minute talk, and just we can see each other. Like it says, you can see the expressions of the other person. You really get to know a person more by doing that. And I think it's good to, both be on the same page about being comfortable about doing that as well. And I think it says a lot about if you're going to be able to work with that person, if they're just cool with that, because I think that's super important. You kind of need that to an extent. And the way you get that done, if you're not in person, is through those video chats. So just, have that conversation, I think, with the other person you're working with. And, just set up like a meeting. Like I would do an introduction meeting, and then throughout the process of whatever you're working on, just keep having the meetings periodically, like maybe once a month, do a check-in meeting with that person and just, have a conversation for 30 minutes. Just talk about the progress that's coming along, what needs done, what the next steps are going to be, all that sort of thing. So even if you're not talking every single day like that, it's good to check in every once in a while. Obviously, the rest of the communication can be done over emails or DMs or whatever you feel is best. But I would always recommend doing that for sure. So I think that's a super important step in the whole process. Real-time messaging apps. These are useful for music collaborators because they let artists, producers, and other professionals connect, share updates instantly without scheduling a video conference. So basically what I just said. I'm not going to read the rest of that paragraph because it's basically what I just said, which is, most of the communication can be done by texting someone or emailing someone. But I think when you're getting into the nitty gritty, the finite details, and you want to really discuss something important, maybe the video conference is the better way to go for all that stuff. So, file sharing and management solutions. Music files require a great deal of storage space. So being able to share files and collaborate on them remotely requires robust file sharing and management solutions. For example, consider that the average 3.5 minute song takes up more than 30 megabytes of space. Thankfully, tools for storing and sharing audio files have come a long way in a short period of time. Efficient file sharing services. These days, cloud-based file sharing services make it possible to easily store and share audio files to be used in music production. Some common examples of these file sharing services often used by musicians and producers include SoundCloud, Dropbox, and iCloud. Meanwhile, the cloud-based nature of these platforms means that files don't need to be manually transferred from one device to another. Instead, all authorized users can have access to files from anywhere at any time. Again, I have experience with Dropbox. I don't know why, but I just don't like Dropbox very much. I don't like the interface of it. I don't know. I can't even explain why I don't like it, but I've just never been a huge fan. Usually if someone sends something to me on Dropbox, I'll be cool with it. I won't be upset. I'll download it. But most of the time I'm not sending anything to anybody on Dropbox. But a lot of people swear by Dropbox and they love using it. So by all means, go ahead with that. I don't really know about SoundCloud sharing files. I think they do have a feature. It might just be with the paid plan where you can share files and kind of work out of like a cloud studio of some sort. but I can't vouch for that. I don't know. iCloud, obviously, like we mentioned, is across all Apple devices, which can be helpful. I like G Drive too, and I actually pay a few extra bucks a month for more storage space. I think I have like a terabyte or like 2 terabytes of storage now. I have a good amount of storage now on G Drive, which is nice because I have a ton of stuff I send on Google. So Google is kind of the main one for me. And then, like I said, they're not cloud-based, but I use WeTransfer, TransferNow for zip files with waves in them because those are massive files. So if you're just trying to send a normal email with those, it's going to take you forever. If you use WeTransfer or TransferNow, either one, they're both basically the same. You could send a large file within a couple minutes, and the person will have access to it for about a week after you send it. So it's not a cloud-based thing. It's not. That's kind of the downside to it. It's more of a one and done. But if you can get your collaborator to send you or to download that in a timely manner so you don't have to resend it, I always use those. So keep that in mind too. I don't think those are going to be on here, so I just wanted to mention those, kind of dive into those. Let's see what else. Oh, version control systems for music. Several cloud-based music production tools and DAWs also include version control features, which make it possible to save backups of different versions of a file as needed. This way, if one collaborator makes a mistake or needs to revert back to a previous version, doing so is as easy as a few clicks. These features can make remote collaboration less stressful and more efficient while offering a bit more peace of mind. I know as a producer, I think I would recommend anyone to just save your multiple versions regardless. Like even just saving them on your laptop is a big thing. That way you have them there. But this is basically saying do that in the cloud as well. Just kind of get in the habit of that because I've had a lot of songs where I've worked on with people that we have different, they want different takes, or they might want certain ad-libs muted, and then they might want them brought back in later. So I'm saving multiple versions of the song regardless, and then I just refer back to the one that, matches what we're going to end up going for at the end. So I guess if I had to give any type of advice with that would be my advice. I think that's pretty much it because the rest of this is talking about Rocky Mountain College of Art. They have an interview. Well, it's not an interview, but they talk to a pop artist named Raimi and producer Alex the Kid about their experiences with remote collaboration. So if you want to read those as well, it's like the last 2 paragraphs. But that is pretty much that. And again, that was the article called Collaboration in the Digital Age, and it was from August of last year. So it's still a relatively new one. And yeah, I thought that one was really good. I thought that one was definitely the most in-depth one. And the other 2 that you can read in the YouTube replay description is 7 tools for collaborating on music remotely. That's by Amuse, and then Evercast has an article called The 7 Best Remote Music Collaboration Software Platforms of 2025, which that one's definitely one to find a platform that probably works best for you, and they're all brand new ones or relatively new ones, so definitely check that one out. But that's pretty much it. I just wanted to kind of give you guys I guess like a snapshot of what it looks like to collaborate remotely, kind of in a nutshell, very finite version of it. So if you're looking to collaborate remotely, I think all this stuff will help you, and definitely check out those articles. Definitely see what else you can find about it too. And if you have a collaborator that wants to work with you remotely, I think just have the conversation about how you want to get it done, because there's a lot of tools out there to make this whole process a lot easier. So hopefully you can use some of those tools we mentioned and maybe find your own too, just by digging and doing your own research. But yeah, I appreciate you guys for checking in. Next week is the 25th. Yeah, the 25th. And we're going to be diving into kind of a long-awaited topic. One that I kind of hold near and dear. It's called creating a daily schedule, which I think that's very important stuff. I say near and dear, it's a joke, but I've kind of had this one kind of in the tuck for a minute, and I want to do the research that kind of applies specifically to social media, kind of just music related topics with scheduling, because obviously daily planners scheduling is a big part of our lives in general, and we should all be kind of utilizing it to an extent to stay organized. But I want to find some articles that relate to it specifically from an artist standpoint, or a producer, or just musician in general, how to stay organized by doing, having a music career, pretty much. So we'll be tackling that on the 25th, next Tuesday. But again, as always, thank you guys for checking in. And check out the YouTube replay for all of the links. Everything I just mentioned will be in that description. But until the 25th, once again, thank you guys so much. Have a great week. Stay safe, stay positive, all that good stuff. See you next time. Peace out, guys.